Hello, everyone. I am back and I am so excited to be here because I know it's been a while since I've shown up to really share with you new information, content, and all those wonderful things. But in reality, to me, this was a very important time to take a break for many reasons. But one of the main things was really about how I intentionally wanted to show up for the podcast, how intentionally I wanted to show up in sharing content, and how I really was thinking that my personal was influencing my professional, and how integrating both it's so important for me in the content that I'm going to be sharing with you. But in that process, what really happened was that I realized that there is a lot of expectations in how we should be showing up on these platforms, in what is the content that we should be sharing, and even from who I am in terms of like my identity as a psychologist, what are the expectations that people are hoping to get from when they connect and listen to me. And that really took a deep dive because it took me to a place where perfectionism was the king. And by that, I mean that there was a lot of overthinking into what to do, in how to behave, in how to act. And I know that this is not only something that I have been experiencing, I know a lot of people have been experiencing that. And it took me into a place of really finding a concept that describes what we're also seeing in social media, and how does that apply to us when in the real world we are struggling into what is this identity or this persona that we want to display. And the concept for that is really called performative authenticity, which I really like in the sense that it's this paradox of like, how is it that when we're performing, we're authentic, and how could that be? So just to start, I'm just going to read to you just what it is. And really, performative authenticity is really about this piece of when we act to present ourselves in a authentic way, but it's really being shaped by the outside expectations, by the social norms, or the audience that we are showing up to. So that means that rather than being grounded by our inner truth or our inner guidance, we are choosing to prioritize all these others' ideas and expectations of others in the way that we choose to act and behave. So in simple terms, it's really when being real kind of becomes performative. And the example that I really want to use for that, just to start, that we all see now on Reels, is just wake up with me, right? And I'm pretty sure a lot of people are very honest and they share their real routines and the things that they do. But at the same time, we also see a lot of these other videos that come out there, and they are kind of making fun, kind of questioning the amount of steps, the amount of things that they do, because they're questioning the base of how much of this that we are being shown, it's actually true or not. So in that sense, we can see it, from this external perspective when we see influencers sharing that content. But in terms of ourselves, that has an impact as well, because then it creates this real sense of wanting to show up in a way that doesn't sometimes resonate with who we really are. And that is really where we want to go in deeper, because then that means that the questions about our self-concept and about our identity are put to the test. If we expand on this, this is when we talk about our multiple roles that we have in society. When we think about our employer or us as employees, right? Like, how is it that we want to be seen in that company versus how much of ourselves are we willing to share, disclose, or not? Or even sometimes in relationships or in marriages, where you're actually just wanting to fit a specific mold or a specific idea of how things should be, but more specifically, how you should be and how you should behave as a wife, as a boyfriend, as a girlfriend. All of those things is what we really want to start considering when we're thinking about performative authenticity. Because what this really leads to is this space of overthinking where we are just trying to assess how should we really appear in front of others? How should we really be and behave? A person who talks about real authenticity, or just what authenticity really means, it's a famous humanistic psychologist, which I have to say I like him and I've been reading his things for a very long time. It's Carl Rogers. And Carl Rogers described authenticity as congruence, meaning that there is an alignment between who we are inside and how we show up in the world. And this is where then performative authenticity really creates a disruption in that internal process, where now performance is not that it's just fake, but it is curated, creating more of an internal conflict. And this is really why we want to start paying attention of how that is happening for us, because in reality, the foundation of our relationships and the foundation in how we are able to connect with others is based on this aspect of congruence. So that means that in order to have real relationships, real connections in a way that it's meaningful, we really want to be in congruence with ourselves to show up in a real, authentic way. Now, let's get into what happens once we realize this, we have clarity. Now what? What comes up for the majority of us? Fear. And fear is at the root of the belief of I am not good enough. And in some shape or form, we all carry some degree of the I am not good enough that actually gets in the way of really showing up as we want. But then that becomes the hindrance into the decision of how much of myself do I really want to show up and be vulnerable, or how much of myself do I really want to hide. What I have seen is that this is where superficiality comes in a lot. And that's why when we meet people and we kind of like get this awkward feeling of, I don't know if I trust them, some of the times it's because we are really experiencing that disruption that they're experiencing internally of they're not being fully authentic. And we really then see more of like this facade or this appearance on how they're showing up. But if we take fear and that's thought of like, I am not good enough, I really want us to go through the process of what it means to fail and what it means to sit with the discomfort of not being able to perform in the way that we thought we should. And what do I mean by that? I can definitely say that one of the things that I have really experienced is that sometimes we really want to hide our mistakes. We really want to hide when we have failed. We really want to hide when things haven't gone well, because by hiding that, we feel that we're keeping our identity intact. And that's why we keep it below the surface. But that works against us, because in the process of stepping into a place of moving through the belief of I am not good enough, there has to come a moment where we actually feel comfortable in accepting that piece of our process, of what didn't work out, of what didn't go the way that we planned, and how okay can we be with that. Because when I think about this place of being able to own up our vulnerabilities, then it is from that space that we're able to show the real part of ourselves. And that is actually how we can be able to connect with one. It is an alignment between who we are inside and how we show up. Some of you may know who Brené Brown is, some of you may not, but she talks about vulnerability and how vulnerability becomes a key concept into connecting with others and to really tapping more into that authentic version of ourselves. So when we're able to be in that space of I have failed, things didn't go as planned, or I don't have to hide my imperfections just to be liked, we step into this place of ease, but we're also opening up for other people around us to really connect to the part of ourselves that makes us human, but also to part of ourselves that we all experience from time to time. And I know nowadays we really just see those moments of error or those mistakes or those fails only when the growth story is attached to it. And when I mean that the growth story is attached to it, is that we really have to see that this served a purpose or there was an outcome. And like my mistakes led me to something great. And yes, that can happen and it is possible. But what if we let go of that growth story as something that actually keeps us disconnected from others? Because not everything needs to be turned into a milestone. Not everything needs to be turned into this space of full development. Sometimes things just are. And sometimes we're just meant to go through those things to really connect to different parts of ourselves, to different parts that we actually have been scared of looking at. And that could really mean that you're going through a very difficult time right now and you're finding it very hard to either be honest about it, to share it with others, and you're trying to struggle to find what is the purpose in all of this. But because you don't find it, you think you're not good enough. But in reality, what about if we transform that idea of that wound into a part of you that is being asked to be looked at, into a part of you that's being asked to be taken care of? And I think that when we create space to look into that, and when we start shifting those ideas and those beliefs of how things should be, we really stepped into our most authentic version. And I do want to have the disclaimer and the clarity that this authentic version, it's never stagnant. It's not static. It's not set in time. Who I was 10 years ago is not who I am now. Who I was last year is not the person who I am now. And that's why I took the time to kind of like reflect and think how I wanted to show up. We're ever evolving. We're ever growing. New experiences are coming in. And in that process, in that interplay of the things that we want, the things that we need, and the experiences that we're going through is where we're going to be able to tap into that space of congruence. And really remember that congruence is really going to be about being able to honor that internal piece of who you are and being able to show up with that. So what I really want you to take from today is a reflection of how is it that you're showing up? Where are the parts in your life where they're being a little bit more performative? Where are the parts of your life where you're just hiding yourself for fear of not being up to par to where it should be? So take these 2 prompts to reflect on. And one of them is going to be, where in my life am I trying to be something I haven't fully embodied yet? And what are the steps that you need to go through to get there? And the other one would be, what would it feel like to trust my presence more than my performance? And I really like this last question because in my own personal experience, the part that I have been really honing in more and really coming to a sense of embodiment, it's about presence. What if we move away from performative authenticity? What if we even move away from this piece of just like authenticity in itself and what it means? How can we then tap more into the idea of presence? Because presence allows you then to really tap into what's happening physically, emotionally, mentally, right? And really do that integration of where you are in your life, what's happening around you, and how is it that you want to show up. So for today, I hope that this really just serves you to create a little bit more of like a deeper reflection. And if you find it helpful, leave a comment, ask me questions. I really do want to learn more about all of you and engage a little bit more. And I hope you enjoyed it. Have a great day.